Hello everybody and welcome back to Dollar Tree Dinners. As I promised on Mondays, we are going to be making the most of a rotisserie chicken. You guys really enjoyed last Mondays. We did a series of 4 meals from a single chicken. We did chicken and gravy over mashed potatoes with green beans. We did a barbecue chicken pizza, cranberry apple pecan chicken salad, and a creamy chicken and wild rice soup. And this week we're going to do the same structure, but with 4 completely different meals. Just like last week, I'm using a cold rotisserie chicken. The reason is twofold. The first is that it's a little bit cheaper. In my experience, the cold rotisserie chickens can be $2 to $3 cheaper than the hot ones. And also cold rotisserie chickens are EBT eligible, whereas in most states, the hot ones are not. However, as you can see, this week I have an orange bag. That's because the only cold chickens that they had at my store were the lemon pepper variety. So that poses a unique challenge in that I had to come up with meals that I thought would work with the lemon pepper flavored chicken. Here's our little chicken. We're gonna divvy it up the exact same way that we did last week. And I'm gonna show that again just in case I have some new people tuning in. So the first thing I'm gonna do is remove the little string that are holding the legs together. And I'm going to just use my hands and remove the legs and the thighs. Those kind of come off really easily. Okay. So we're gonna set those aside for meal number 1. Then I'm gonna also remove the wings. And we're gonna add those directly back into our rotisserie chicken bag. And we're also going to remove the skin and add that back into our bag as well. If you have any of this kind of gelatinous substance, this is just called aspic, I think is what you guys told me is how it's pronounced. I was saying aspic before. It is aspic, and it's just collagen. So it'll add a lot of body and richness to sauces, so you don't really want to discard that. Since we're working with a cold chicken, it's a little bit difficult to pull the meat off as it would be with a hot chicken. So I do like to just use a knife and carve off the breast instead of trying to fight with the chicken. Silly. So if there's any residual meat on the bones, that is not a big deal because we are using that for our 4th meal. And then these are our carved chicken pieces. So again, we've got our legs and our thighs, and we've got our 2 breasts, and that will be our first 3 meals. I am going to be using bacon for a few of these meals today, so I do want to get that prepped in advance. I got the cheapest bacon I could find at the store, which I think was like $3.50. And I'm gonna go ahead and cook it in advance. That way I have it at the ready for all 4 of these meals. I'm using it in 3 of them. So I'm gonna take this pack of bacon and I'm just gonna cut it up into bite-sized pieces. Let's grab a pot. I'm gonna use the exact same pot I used for all of the previous meals last week. And the first thing we're gonna do is let that all kind of render down and get crispy. My favorite part about starting these recipes with bacon is that we will have not only the bacon bits to add to our recipes, but the bacon fat that we can use in place of like butter or oil as well. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 as far as an ingredient goes. Once the bacon's cooked, I'm gonna strain it. I wasn't originally gonna do anything with this, but I feel like I don't want that flavor to go to waste. So let's chop up an onion real quick. So my goal is for all of these meals to be really simple. So you could definitely skip this step. And onion's just a really good way to get all of that little crispy, bacony goodness off the bottom of the pan. I think I need to add a little bit of water too. There we go. First dinner that I'm making is going to be a creamy pasta, and I try to keep all of the ingredients really simple. So I went with this pastaroni, Parmesan cheese, angel hair pasta in a Parmesan sauce with natural flavors. The first thing we need to do though is get our chicken meat off the bone. So I have my leg quarters. I did go ahead and remove the skins from them just because, you know, they're not going to be that great of a texture at this point. And as you can see, I just put 2 cups of water in my pan there. And I'm gonna let that chicken simmer and reheat so we can shred it. I just want it to be heated up enough that it kind of falls off the bone, which only takes a couple of minutes since the chicken is pre-cooked. Let's go ahead and remove our chicken. So we've kind of infused our water with a lot of flavor here from the onion and the bacon, and now we've added chicken to it. We're gonna add a cup of milk, and in place of the butter, I'm gonna use bacon fat for extra flavor. So one thing to note is that I am kind of reducing the volumes on the measurements on this because I always find that these call for too much liquid, especially for some reason when you're doubling up on it. So I usually try to cut out about a cup of total liquid when I'm doubling the amount of pasta that I'm cooking. It just works better that way. I'm not sure why. Because usually if I follow the measurements on the box, I end up with very soupy pasta when I double it. Otherwise, we're pretty much gonna just follow the instructions on the box of pasta. I loved having things like this on hand for easy dinners. And this only needs to cook for, it says 4 to 5 minutes uncovered. All right, so we've got that all mixed together. I've got a timer set. And while that simmers, I'm gonna add a couple of things to this, starting with our cooked and shredded chicken legs and thighs. And I'm also gonna add in a couple of handfuls of diced tomatoes. You can use canned or fresh. I just have some fresh ones to use up in my fridge. And then of course there's onions in that as well. So we've got onions, tomatoes, chicken, bacon fat. We've added a few different things to this to make it more interesting. So 5 minutes later and our dinner is pretty much ready. And I do believe I forgot to mention, but these are dinners for 2. You can always scale these up for your family size. I generally just recommend about 1 rotisserie chicken per 2 adults. You could definitely probably squeeze like a child's portion out of these if you needed to, but I try not to stretch it too far. I try to be very realistic in what I consider a portion size for the purposes of budget meals. And we're gonna finish it off with a sprinkle of Parmesan cheese and a few of our cooked bacon crumbles as a garnish. That'll add some salt, a little bit of crisp, a little bit of crunch. But I don't want to be too heavy-handed with the bacon because I do need some of the bacon for the next couple of meals as well. I feel like that's a really good first meal. It did require a little bit of prep work, but it did come together all in one pot. Let's try it because this is one that I just kind of thought of in my head and I was just kind of optimistic that it would work. So let's give it a taste. So much of that bacon flavor comes through because we did kind of layer, if you think about it, we kind of layered the bacon flavor in there. Because we deglazed the bottom of the pan with the onion and a little bit of water. Then we added bacon fat in place of butter, and then we added more bacon on top. So this really is a creamy bacon pasta, and it's just got chicken kind of thrown in there. I would have to say that this is a little bit on the heavier side just because of all of the different really creamy elements that are in here, but the little pops of tomato really lighten it up. So I just realized that my microphone was not on for the first portion of this recipe, but you haven't missed much. We're making another pizza. Similar to the structure in last week's rotisserie chicken, we started with something saucy, a way to use the legs and thighs. Now we have the breast portion. It's a little bit of a drier meat, so we're trying to compensate for that. And last week I did a barbecue chicken pizza. This week I'm doing a chicken bacon ranch pizza. So I took one of my 2 chicken breasts and I just cut it up into small bite-sized pieces, just little dices. And last week I used a canned pizza dough and I love the convenience of canned pizza dough. But this week I'm using Pizza Buddy. Pizza Buddy is a fresh pizza dough you can usually find over in like the deli section by like potato salad, coleslaw and stuff like that. And it's most similar to the pizza dough that you would either make yourself. It's most similar to the pizza dough you would get from like Pizza Hut or Domino's or something like that. It does require a little bit more prep work than the canned pizza dough. So if you want this to be ultra simple, stick with the canned stuff. Otherwise, you can grab the Pizza Buddy and you can just follow the instructions on the bag. They're pretty straightforward. And so that's where we're at right now. So I've gone ahead and let my dough kind of sit to try to get it up to room temperature so it's easier to stretch. If your dough resists stretching, it's probably just not warm enough. So I've kind of been checking it every so often, but it looks like we're at the right temperature now to stretch it out. And I'm just stretching it directly on my pizza pan. Just kind of using my hands and working in a circular motion to stretch the dough out. And once you've got your dough stretched out to the size of your liking, I like to take a fork and just put a bunch of little holes in the dough. That prevents air pockets, those big bubbles of dough. And it's called docking. For a chicken bacon ranch pizza, the sauce is just ranch dressing. Whatever kind you have works fine. And use a spoon to spread it out to those crust edges. I like to leave about a 1/2 inch of crust around the outer edges. Now we're gonna sprinkle on our diced rotisserie chicken breast. Trying to cover the pizza pretty evenly so that there's a little bit of chicken in every bite. Lastly, we're going to top it with some shredded mozzarella cheese. You can shred yours fresh or by the pre-shredded. It doesn't really matter to me. In the pizza making world, we try not to center load our dough. So that means that we try to keep most of the toppings kind of to the outer edges of the pizza. And try to keep the center of the pizza a little lighter on the toppings. It's because as the pizza bakes, it kind of pulls in those toppings to the center of the pizza. So it can make your center really heavy, which is when you slice it into these little triangular pieces, that center is the weakest part. So if you keep most of your toppings to the outer edges, as it bakes and kind of gravity pulls it into the center, you'll end up with a really evenly topped pizza. Then I'm going to add on some of our cooked bacon crumbles, again saving some for our third meal. To meal number 1, and that is intentional because every ingredient is an extra cost, so I try to overlap ingredients whenever possible. But last dinner was a Parmesan pasta and this one is a ranch pizza. So even though they have some similar ingredients, they are completely different meals. I'm going to be baking this at 400 degrees for about 15 to 16 minutes. So that one, as you can see, also comes together super quick and easy. I had a lot of suggestions in my last video with regards to some lower heat options for those of you who are trying not to run your oven in the summer months. You can buy prepared flatbreads or stone fire breads and build your pizza on that. That would allow you to cook them either outdoor on a grill or even on a skillet on your stovetop. And as usual, you can also do a sandwich version or a wrap version. Personally, I think a chicken bacon ranch wrap would be delicious, especially with some chopped lettuce in there, you know, the cooked chicken, the cooked rotisserie chicken breast, ranch, bacon, cheese, tomato. Would probably make a really good toasted wrap. I like my crust a little on like the underdone side, so I didn't let it go too long. When it comes to deep dish pizzas, crispy crust all the way, but when it comes to like a regular pizza, I like it just a little on the softer side. Not quite as thin and crispy and easy to cut because I always struggle to cut pizzas with this really awful pizza cutter that I have. It's Farberware. It shouldn't be so bad. I thought it was like, you know, Farberware is like a good brand. This pizza cutter is terrible though. Let me cut this off camera so you guys don't laugh at me. And much like our barbecue chicken pizza, I think you should always do a little cold drizzle of sauce. So you get that hot sauce and the cold sauce. I think it's fantastic. Let me finish that spiral. Here we go. And that is our nice thick crust chicken bacon ranch pizza. I am so glad you guys are enjoying this rotisserie chicken series. It's a lot of fun for me to make, and I love the creative aspect of trying to make these meals as simple as possible with minimal additional ingredients. I try to keep each meal like a rotisserie chicken plus maybe 4 to 5 ingredients, like really, really simple, and these are super customizable as well. The crust is like perfectly brown on the bottom, super light and fluffy on the inside. Chicken bacon ranch is a very popular pizza for a reason. Dinner number 3 with our rotisserie chicken is our cold meal of the week, or our sandwich of the week. And I picked out a chopped Caesar sandwich for this week. This one should be the quickest and easiest of them all because I am taking this other chicken breast and I'm pairing it with a prepared Caesar salad kit and some bread from the bakery department, or you can use sub rolls or any bread of your choice. And that's where the bacon comes in too, because we're gonna add some bacon to our chopped Caesar sandwich. I'm gonna be using a rather large cutting board for this just because it's kind of messy. It sounds like a lot of fun though. And the reason I went with the Caesar salad kit is because it basically has everything that we need to make our sandwich. It's got our dressing, our Parmesan cheese, and our romaine lettuce. But if you already have Caesar dressing, then just buy the lettuce and Parmesan separate. Either way works. So grab yourself a knife and begin to chop down your lettuce into really, really small pieces. So have a little bit of fun with it. If you have any frustrations to take out that day, this might be a fun one to make. I'm gonna pop it in a bowl just to make it easier to mix all of the ingredients together, but I've seen people do it directly on the cutting board. I don't trust myself enough for that, to be fair. So I'm gonna do the same thing with the chicken and the bacon. And our pre-cooked bacon crumbles. Now let's get to chopping. I have seen people integrate the croutons into this. I've tried it. I'm not a huge fan of the croutons in this particular dish, so I would recommend saving these. Maybe we'll use them in next week's rotisserie chicken video. But into our bowl goes our chicken and bacon mixture. And I'm gonna use some of the Parmesan in the salad and some of the Parmesan as a topping. So about half of the Parmesan in the mixture, save a little bit for a topping. And we can go ahead and dump in all of our Caesar dressing. Now let's grab a spoon and give that all a good mix. And that's what your mixture should look like. So it's got a little bit of everything in every bite. I absolutely love the way that looks, and I would probably eat that as just a salad, but we are making it into a sandwich today. And I like to just trim off the ends of this bread because I find it's a little, for lack of a better term, bready. You can also save those. All right, I'm going to slice it down the middle. And if you guys have been here for a while, you know that the other thing I like to do is trench the bread, which is where you remove some of the inside of the bread so you have more room for your toppings. Just makes it a better ratio. It just makes it a better ratio of toppings to bread too. A lot of sandwich shops do this. Once we've got our hollowed out bread, We are gonna stuff it with our chicken bacon Caesar mixture. So I think officially now you can say that you have seen Dollar Tree dinners make a salad. Add on that extra sprinkle of Parmesan cheese. And let's attempt to seal this up without making a huge mess. But the point of this is to be quite a loaded sandwich. So losing a little bit of toppings, but let's just stuff those back in there. All right, cut that bad boy in half. And that is meal number 3, a chopped Caesar sandwich. I'm really excited to try this. I've done Caesar salad wraps, but I've never done a Caesar salad sandwich. It's a little messy. It's kind of hard to keep all the toppings in the sandwich since it's all finely chopped, but it's a really light and refreshing but filling meal. And I feel like that's an incredibly difficult combination to achieve. Something that's light and crisp, but also filling. And you really do get a little bit of everything in every bite. Every bite I can taste that tender chicken, a little bit of salty bacon, some salty Parmesan cheese, that crisp lettuce, and this is really fabulous. I can definitely see why people like the chopped sandwich trend, and I am for sure gonna be making this one again. So we're down to the final rotisserie chicken dinner, and at this point we've only got the bones and like the residual meat that's kind of left on them. I was gonna be making tortilla soup this week, but then I was only able to get a lemon pepper chicken, so I had to pivot slightly. The soup is the most important part about working with the flavor of the chicken because most of that flavor is in the skin. And so that's gonna be infused into our stock. And I didn't wanna make a lemon pepper flavored tortilla soup. So working with the lemon pepper flavor of the chicken, I was thinking, well, we could do a lemon and rice soup, but we did rice soup last week. So I decided to make chicken noodle soup, but the easy way. I have a really fun shortcut for how I like to make chicken noodle soup, and I think you guys will enjoy it as well. But first things first, we have to make our quick chicken stock. So we're gonna add all of the bones, skin, and any like odds and ends into our stock pot here. Then we're gonna be adding just enough water to cover our chicken bones. For me, that's somewhere between 4 to 6 cups. It's usually around 6. Cover that with a lid, let it come up to a boil. All right, once it's boiling, reduce the heat to a simmer and set a 30-minute timer. I had a few questions about this bowl and strainer combo. It did come as a set. I've had it for a long time. It came with like an assortment of various size bowls, and one of the bowls was a strainer. So it kind of fits because it was all kind of nested into each other. But really any strainer that fits into a bowl, or you can do kind of like a strainer over a bowl, works either way. All right, we're gonna pour our stock in. If you have the time, I do recommend making this in the slow cooker overnight. Not only is that more ideal for summer, it's very hands-off, and you'll extract like the most flavor and nutrients from out of your chicken. But again, I'm trying to keep this pretty quick and painless. So that's why we're doing these 30-minute stocks for this rotisserie chicken series. And this stock does smell like lemon. Just like last time, we need to let this cool down enough that we can pick the meat off the bones without burning our little fingers. I do like to kind of take my time when it comes to picking through this meat. Number one, I'm trying to remove all of the skin. I'm also trying to remove all the cartilage and kind of knobby bits. And I'm trying to look for what I would consider to be the clean meat. So not like nothing like kind of slimy or anything like that. I actually feel like I'm getting a decent amount of meat off of this carcass as opposed to the other one. And that could have had to do with how I carved the chicken. So if you wanted to kind of carve it strategically so that you have a little bit more residual meat for your soup, you definitely could. So that's how much meat I got off of it. So there's all of our bones and skin and cartilage, and that is all of our meat. So again, I'm a little particular on what I pick off. So there may be a little bit of meat left in this, but I'm also not trying to choke on a bone. So I'm very cautious when picking through my chicken, and I do recommend that you be cautious as well. Better safe than sorry. And now that that's done, let's make our shortcut chicken noodle soup. I'm gonna be using some of our bacon fat from the first recipe that we made, just a couple tablespoons. That is completely optional, I just have it, and since we bought bacon, we might as well get our money's worth out of our bacon, right? So let's start with that and get that melted down over medium-high heat. I'm gonna be sauteing some veggies in our bacon fat, so this is just onion, celery, and carrots. The celery and carrots are still left over from last week's chicken video, and the onion is the other half of the onion from the first recipe that I made. Carrots, celery, and onion are pretty hardy, or if you want to buy them once, you can also pre-chop them and freeze them for easier meals down the line. I'm gonna let those cook down quite a bit in that bacon fat, let them infuse with that flavor and get slightly caramelized. I'm not gonna be making a roux for this one, so we're gonna go straight into the broth. I'm gonna add in all of our chicken broth. Which is about 6 cups or so. And I'm gonna let that come up to a boil as well. Even though our chicken was lemon pepper, our broth is unseasoned, so I'm gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper to it. My Caesar salad kit came with this little packet of pepper, and I'll use that in my soup today, in an effort of using up most of everything that came with all of our ingredients. Here's my secret ingredient to making a fast and delicious chicken noodle soup, and it is Knorr pasta sides in the chicken flavor. This is fettuccine in a savory chicken flavored sauce. It adds a lot of richness. It has pasta already in there, seasoning already in there, and honestly, it really makes a fantastic chicken noodle soup. So we're just gonna dump that in. Give that all a stir. Now is where we're gonna wanna taste for seasonings, see if we need to add anything to it. Oh my God, that is so good. That is perfect. It tastes just like chicken noodle soup that's been simmering for hours. And once that's all mixed in, this really just needs to simmer for about 7 minutes until the pasta is cooked. When you've got about a minute left on your noodles, that's what I'm gonna add back in my chicken. That was the suggestion I had last time, was just to add the chicken in just at the end to warm it through, but so it doesn't disintegrate. Because it did kind of break down a little bit with the wild rice soup. If you want this one to look a little more meaty, just add it in right at the very end. So that is meal number 4 for this week's rotisserie chicken series. We've got a really rich chicken noodle soup. And you know, I was thinking, how could we make this a little more filling? Chicken noodle soup is very traditionally served with some kind of a cracker, like an oyster cracker, which you could definitely do. But I was thinking, since we had these leftover croutons from our Caesar salad kit, that those could also be served as a partner to the soup. And just look at that. Look how rich that broth looks. It's got a beautiful color. We've got those hearty little noodles, little chunks of chicken, and that all came from just the scraps of our chicken. I feel like this might be one of my favorite series that I've ever done. I've mentioned it kind of earlier in the episode. I really love making the most of every dollar, and I really love making the most of these little chickens, especially now that it's summertime and we're all trying to eat without cooking too much. I know chicken noodle soup is a little bit more of a winter meal than it is a summer meal, but I feel like it's homey and classic pretty much all year round. And it's just one of those meals that feels very comforting and close to home. I feel like I should try both the croutons and the oyster crackers just so I can tell you guys which I prefer. The croutons are good, but they're a little salty and a little garlicky. They do kind of change the flavor of the soup a bit. I definitely prefer the oyster crackers to the croutons, although I still think it's a really good way to use the croutons. So this week we took a lemon pepper chicken and we turned it into 4 completely different meals. We did a creamy pasta with bacon and tomatoes. We did a chicken bacon ranch pizza, a chopped Caesar sandwich, and now some hearty chicken noodle soup. All from one rotisserie chicken. You guys will have to let me know in the comments which was your favorite meal of the week, and if you have any suggestions for next week's rotisserie chicken series. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and I'll see you again tomorrow for $10 Tuesday.